Hey, what do you say we do another vlog? Let's do that. Let's do a quick one. So not much went on this week. It's yeah, it was just a quiet week. Lockdown's eased a little bit as usual, but yeah, it's still, mostly nothing to do. It was pretty cold, so I couldn't really do much walking around or anything either. So, it's fine. So just stuff at home for the week, really. But it was the week after one came back, so in a bit we'll go over all of that. But just before we get to the F1, I'll touch on the other thing I've been doing this week. I started playing State of Decay 2, which has been on my queue for stuff to play since a little while before I was supposed to get the Xbox. Obviously, that whole situation delayed things significantly, but now I've got the Xbox, so I was able to make a start. Basically, my thinking with this was, it came into my radar during that period of the first sort of half of the pandemic, where all of our attentions turned somewhat to the idea of, what happens after society shuts down. How do we rebuild it? So the zombie apocalypse in State of Decay 2, obviously, quite a bit worse than the already pretty bad situation we got into with the whole COVID. But that was bad. This is what it has is way worse. But that's where the thinking was. Anyway, because of that, it's been something I've been wanting to look at for a while. So I dove in, and I like it. It's a good game. I mean, it's not a masterpiece or anything, but I'm getting what I want out of it. What I wanted to do was build a community, and that's what I'm getting to do. The stealth mechanics with the zombies, or the Zeds, as they sometimes call them, presumably to try and be cool, they work pretty well. Combat is challenging. I'm playing on the normal difficulty. I didn't want to bash my head against the crazy survivalist stuff, but it's not completely babysitting me either. I do have to manage resources and ammo and things. But the combat on that is fine, pretty fine. Guns, do the job, but you gotta make sure your aim's good. Ammo can be something you gotta manage, but it's not to the point where it's really irritating, where you're constantly babysitting your bullets. Even The Last of Us go into that sometimes, where you almost didn't want to fire any of your guns because you might then need them. Wasting ammo that you needed for the encounter after or whatever. But yeah, I'm liking going out on my excursions, getting resources, bringing them back, upgrading the base. We've moved to a new one since I started. So I think I've about just under a week in so far. Community's doing all right. Got my guy Jules is now sheriff of the town, picking up a few play hearts, and I think we're gonna be fine. I think we're gonna make it out of the zombie apocalypse. But yeah, it's good. I like State of Decay 2. Something I might have on the back burner and keep coming back to over time. Quick resume makes that really easy. If I've gone away and played Destiny 2 or something in the meantime. It's just alright, let's check back in with the State of Decay community, pop it in, and it just boops me back to where it was. So that's cool. Yeah, liking that. That was the main thrust of the first half of my week. Zombieing, killing the zombies, building stuff, finding resources, toting it back. Got myself a pickup truck in it. It's this really cool, sick military pickup truck. it's dope. Anyway, speaking of driving things, as you do to get around in State of Decay 2, like I said, the Formula 1 was back this week. Got my McLaren shirt on, so you know, I was into that. So we'll do some. Let's talk about the F1. So I think the good news is, it looks like we actually have a battle on our hands for the championship. I think it seemed to me, based on qualifying and the race together, like, at least at this moment, it may be different on different tracks, it may be different over the time, but the Red Bull is probably by a little bit the faster car. Though the result operationally suggests that maybe Mercedes are a good racing team, shockingly, and Lewis Hamilton is a really good racing driver, shockingly. Like, the hottest takes, that's what I've got, the hottest of hot takes. Yes, Lewis Hamilton's a good racing driver, like, really, really good. Way better even than he used to be. Like, one of the best things about Hamilton is he was always naturally very, very talented. But what I've particularly admired about him over the past couple of years is the ways in which he has visibly learned and improved to become even better, to the point that he is now absolutely and sensationally good. And it's even there are explicit times it comes up where, like, there have been cases in the past couple of years where specific events he's mentioned that he did something differently because you remembered a previous time where something's gone wrong, and how he or the team didn't handle it right the first time, so he wanted to avoid that happening. Those are the explicit ones, but just in general, it seems like wherever he had weaknesses or other people had strengths that he didn't quite have, he's tried to learn and adapt, and that's what has made him so good. Like, the natural talent was always there. He's incredibly talented. What was really impressive is he didn't just rest on that. Even after he started dominating with Mercedes, even since then, he's adapted and improved based on experience. And it's that commitment to improvement that's really, really put him in John's above. Verstappen is also super, like, naturally talented, but he's younger, less experienced. So, I mean, put him in some car, I still think Hamilton probably would overall come out ahead. There'd definitely be days where Verstappen would find a way to be the fastest and beat him, but I think over a season, my money would still be on Lewis by some way. But with the Red Bull being not just competitive with it, but maybe a little bit faster, I think we might see a season where it ebbs and flows between the two of them, which is what we all want. We want two drivers from two different teams at least battling it out. Preferably all four drivers from those two teams, but I mean, I don't know about Bottas. Usually seems to start strong and then tail off a third of the way through the season, and then they're really, after that, he's really peaky. I don't know. I don't really. Bottas is a very good racing driver. I mean, he's not in the league of the elites, and the people he's racing are the elites. So it's tough. Perez could be interesting though. He's at least on the fringes of the elite. I rate him higher than I think a lot of people do. So having him in the other Red Bull, definitely going to help them out. I could see a scenario where Hamilton does win the 8th World Championship in the drivers, but Perez is sufficiently better than Bottas over the season that Red Bull takes the constructors, which would be an interesting result. I think that's plausible. But, Verstappen could do it. The Red Bull does seem to be slightly faster, so it might come down to the development. But, it's exciting. It seems exciting. That particular race was exciting. It was going back and forth. There was a point where it looked like Verstappen had it in the bag, and then a strategy call that they made. I was like, I don't understand what they're doing. They're handing advantage to Hamilton here. And then that turned around because Mercedes made another their own strategy call that I went, that's handed the advantage right back to Verstappen because they brought Lewis in too soon. And sure enough, we saw Verstappen was able to hunt him down and pass him, and that's where we start to see, you know, the classic problem in Formula One right now, the terrible officiating, comes in and becomes the issue. Now, there was nothing wrong with what wound up happening. Verstappen passed Hamilton off track, which is against the rules. So, quite rightly, he was instructed to hand the place back, and he did, and that's fine. That's what should happen. That's great. The issue is that over the course of the race weekend, the particular term where that happened for, the rules on like whether or not you could run wide and how far you could run changed over time. So after first practice, they changed it. It was already too permissive in my view at that point, because I think already then they were going to police it basically. No exceptions in practice and qualifying, but then in the race it was going to be it's not being actively monitored, but you're still expected to follow the rule, which you can't say to a bunch of Formula One drivers, you know, we're not going to check if you're going fast off the track, but also don't do it. Because they're just going to do it. Like, of course they are. They're almost obligated to. Their job is to, you know, be the fastest they can be. And also the wording is all super muddy. The wording of the rule itself is already vaguer than it probably should be. There's a whole thing about gaining elastic advantage, but that actually refers to during the track. So, you know, the actual relevant part is really the part that says you must make best efforts at all times to stay on the track. And a lot of the drivers, almost all of them actually, were in these cases where the FIA inexplicably says, yeah, track limit to that corner, we don't care, whatever. Of course, they don't make efforts to stay on the track because the FIA basically just told them they don't have to. And so that fluctuated through the weekend. And then it seemed to fluctuate in the race because Hamilton, completely fairly, in my view, based on what he'd been told, was going a little bit wider through there than everybody else was. As far as I can tell, he was still staying within the super extended limit they'd given, which I think was you couldn't go beyond like the AstroTurf and stuff, the gravel, there's just some gravel or something there. So he wasn't doing that. But Red Bull picked up on this at one point and radioed Verstappen to say, you know, hey, you should do that too. And after that, which is about 30 laps into the race, I think Hamilton had done like 29 laps, the FIA suddenly got in touch with Hamilton and said, hey, stop doing that. Which obviously confused Hamilton because as far as he was aware, what he was doing was fine. Verstappen was confused by the message telling him to do it because as far as he was concerned, that would have been illegal. And it just turned into this whole mess. And it's completely self-inflicted wound. It's not like the drivers or the teams were doing anything wrong. They were following the, frankly, preposterously confusing rules. And there's no reason the rules should be that confusing. It just seems to come down to the fact that at times in the past, quite recently, particularly in the past few years, drivers have started complaining about track limits and being like, oh, we want to run wide through there. And the FIA every time has seemingly buckled and said, okay, we'll stop playing the track limits through there. And they shouldn't. Because the racetrack is the racetrack. There's white lines, those are the edge of the track. If you go all four wheels off, that's it. If there was a wall there, you'd have crashed. If there was a wall there, you'd have crashed when you left, when you put one wheel over. So, all four, you got no excuse. It should just be that if you go exceed the track perimeter with your full width of your car in practice, which includes qualifying, your lap time gets deleted. In the race, you know, obviously if it's an overtake or you're maintaining a position by doing it, as now, immediately you have to pass it back, otherwise it'll be a time penalty. With regards to gaining time, I would say you can make some allowances for the fact that someone might make a mistake. So it's if you're doing it consistently to gain an advantage, and some people say that's hard to you can't determine that, but you can. And my thing is, if you do it like 3 times, you're doing it because you're gaining something. And even if you're not losing something that you should have lost because you're not slowing down to avoid it happening, which you're supposed to do because the rule says you're supposed to make best efforts to stay in the track. So, the solution is, for me, straightforward. As I said in the practice sessions and qualifying, delay the time in the race, do it once, maybe nothing happens. Do it twice, you get a warning. Do it 3 times, time penalty. That's it. The point is, you shouldn't let the drivers exceed the track. Imagine if in tennis, like when the ball was contested about being out, the umpire, instead of like consulting the line judge or the Hawkeye or whatever, or their own judgment, said, well, actually, I'm consulting the championship referee's notes for this weekend, and he says that for the purposes of policing this particular line, I'm to judge it off of whether or not it hit that mango over there. That's the kind of nonsense they're doing in Formula 1 right now, and it's silly. The track is the track, just like the court is the court in tennis, the pitch is the pitch in football. These are supposed to be the 20 best drivers in the world. They should be able to keep their cars within the track limit. If they can't do it in that corner, guess what, boys? You're driving too fast, so you have to let off the gas. It's that simple. Lose the time. You're all going to lose it because you're all supposed to be following the same rules. Why does the racetrack get redrawn? Because the drivers decide they would prefer to go fast at that point. That's not how it works. Your job is to drive the track that exists as fast as possible. The drivers shouldn't be redrawing the track. Anywhere, ever. Stop it, FIA. You stop it. You knock it off and you cut it out. Sounds like the team bosses also kind of agree. They're sick of it as well. The fans are sick of it. The media's sick of it. Everybody's sick of it. Just use the exact existing rule that we already have and stop this stupid ambiguity with letting the race director decide it on a race-by-race basis, on a corner-by-corner basis. Enough already. We have a rule, follow it. Boom. Problem solved. But I don't know, Michael Massey seems very stubborn, so God knows, it might never get fixed. But I hope not, because I would prefer for us to be talking about, Hamilton and Verstappen racing and the midfield pack being really close, than constantly still having to talk about the stupid way the track limits aren't being enforced and dumb safety things that aren't being done properly, which was a thing that came up quite a lot last year. So get your stuff together, FIA. Get your stuff together, race control. Let's get this back on track so we... I didn't mean to do that, but that's quite funny. Let's get this back on track so we can focus on the racing. Speaking of the racing, we've talked about Hamilton and Verstappen. Let's talk about the race further back. Really good stuff from Tsunoda. Good debut from Mick Schumacher. Just a solid return from Alonso. He went out with a technical problem, but before that, absolutely great return. Incredible in qualifying. Couldn't believe he dragged that Alpine as high as he did, but hats off to him. My focus was on, of course, the McLarens. Great job from Lando. Just spectacular race pace, just all the way through. Early on, did some great overtakes and just held it. And yeah, hats off to him. Another solid opening race of the season from Lando. No last lap heroics this time, but you can't have everything. Dan Ricciardo, great in qualifying. Got to a little bit of a tussle with Gasly during the race at the start. I think they came out hidden at the back. Some speculation about it doing his tyre, but at the time it didn't seem to do it at the time. But it might have, I don't know, done something to the floor or whatever. Because his race pace after that, never quite seems to be as good as Lando when he'd been. Obviously, he was faster in qualifying and he'd been fairly close during practice. So maybe it was that, maybe it was, not getting used to the brakes and the tyres, maybe some combination of it. But not awful either, frankly. Kind of got screwed a little bit, not by, McLaren doing anything wrong or anything, just the way things worked out. With the strategy at the first pit stops, dropped in behind some traffic, which, if there was anything wrong with the car or whatever it was, probably wouldn't have helped because, dirty air, so dropped back a ways, but held it out, got solid double points for the team, enough to keep them in third in the constructors as things stand. AlphaTauri had a bit of a weekend where some bad luck for Gasly in particular, so they might be more of a threat in the future. Ferrari were faster than we thought, so they're also seemingly in contest with AlphaTauri and McLaren for that third spot, so that should be a fun fight. Aston Martin don't look particularly hot. The changes to the regulations for this year from last year seem to have hit cars that use the Mercedes philosophy quite hard. And considering the fact that the Aston Martin is just a Mercedes, it hit them pretty hard as well. And obviously with it being an older Mercedes, it's got even less performance than them. So they seem to have slipped back into the clutches of Alpine. Vettel had a particularly bad race. Stroll did fine, considering the seeming pace of that car. But yeah, Vettel had a pretty bad race. There was some good racing from him, but he had an issue in qualifying where he hadn't slowed down for a yellow flag, although as I understand it might have been behind him, so it's a little bit of a... I know why he got punished for it, but I can see why other people think it's a bit weird. But yeah, he was doing okay in the race, not spectacularly. Some good racing with some people. But then later on, for no apparent reason, he was getting passed by Ocon, and he just ploughed into the back of him. And then he's on the radio and in the interview pen afterwards being like, oh, why did Ocon move in the braking zone? And Ocon didn't. He was straight. He took the racing line. It was Vettel who went right and then jerked left and then couldn't slow down and ploughed into the back of him. Hopefully he gets it a bit together there. And, doesn't spend his time propping up the back of the grid like it looks like he might. But, that was not pleasant. I'm thinking, it seems like the environment he's in is slightly better than the toxic relationship he's in with Ferrari towards the end, so that might help. I don't think Seb responds well to that sort of environment, so hopefully improving it will help him overcome some of these demons. He's not super au fait with the car yet, so jury's still out, but still not a good start to that relationship. Aston Martin, the team, Verstappen just keeps whining about the rules and how unfair it is that the rules changed and it was bad for his team. His team full on copied someone else's car. Let's stop pussyfooting, right? Can we just not? They copied the Mercedes. That's what happened. The sympathy not coming. They're also not this small upstart team anymore. As they keep reminding us, Lawrence Stroll is a fantastically rich man. They're not an underdog. So I don't have any sympathy when Otmar Safnauer starts whining that, oh no, the rules made my car slower. Suck it up, man. It's Formula 1. Sometimes the rules make your car slower. Here we are at the first race, and Otmar was apparently marching into the FIA with a laptop to be like, here's my PowerPoint presentation on why you should change these rules that we all agreed to, because my car isn't as fast as my competitors anymore. What? You think anyone would have any sympathy for a basketball team that marched into the NBA's office and was like, hey, you changed the rules so that my star player's trick shot can't be used anymore. You should change it back so that we win again. I mean, I guess the fans of that team, but fans of the sport in general, why would you expect them to be sympathetic to that? The rules are the rules. Everyone's playing by them. Just suck it up, Otmar. Suck it up, Aston Martin. You got loads of money. Develop the next car. Anyway, rant over. Williams, we should talk about very anonymous from Latifi, as sadly usual. Russell, good in qualifying. Seems like the car is a little bit more inconsistent in pace than they were expecting, so might be a long year for them, but still better than Haas. So that thing's garbage. So poor Mick, but at least it means the Mick gets to develop for a year without too much expectation or spotlight. Who have we not touched on? No, we did Alfa Romeo. Gosh, so fun having all these teams with similar names. They were fine. They were pretty. They did okay. Not terrible, not spectacular. I don't really remember anything, particularly one way or the other about them from the weekend. So, I mean, that's better than can be said for some of the other teams. So they seem fine. I think that's everyone, right? Yeah, that's everyone. Okay. So yeah, that was the Bahrain Grand Prix. Excited for more. 3-week wait is killer, but can't be helped with the situation. F1's back, so that's fun. In the meantime, I don't know what I'll be doing. It's my long week next week, so I'll be at home working a lot, so I don't know if I'll have much opportunity to do really anything. Just a couple of days off, and who knows? I might need to sleep. Sleeping pattern very weird right now with the pandemic. I don't know. We'll see. Short week after that. Yeah. Wow. Getting busy. Getting towards when I change jobs too. It's a couple of weeks now. Starting the 12th. So that's this week though. Not too much. Just the usual stuff that I do. There was some Destiny 2 that we didn't talk about, but it's the same week to week for the most part. State of Decay 2, as we said, in the F1. I did do one thing. See this? This is my Xbox controller. And on it, we have a chat pad now. Look at that. It's a little keyboard attached to my controller. And it has a headset jack on it, and also controls for that headset jack. Because the Xbox controller has a headset jack on it by default. But it doesn't have like a mute switch or volume or anything like that. My HyperX Cloud headset doesn't have a mute switch or volume built into the cable. You have to use the USB thing that plugs in, but I don't like to use the USB thing that plugs into my consoles because it takes up a USB slot. PlayStation 5 controller, DualSense, there's a mute button on the controller anyway, because there's a mic in the controller, so I could use that. My Xbox controller, if I plug that into it, I'd have to use software buttons. So I was like, I'll get a chatbot. There is just a headset adapter thing, but I was like, if I'm going to get one of these things now, I'll get the chatpad, get the keyboard, it'd be cool. Only thing is, Microsoft doesn't make them anymore, so I had to get a used one. For complicated reasons, I about ordering two. We don't get into that. But they both arrived like one day. One arrived one day and one arrived the next day. But neither one of them worked. First one, if you plugged it in, nothing would happen. And I tried it on multiple controllers, and I was like, well, what's wrong with this? Inspected it more closely, and the connector to go into the controller, it looked like had cracked, and part of it had gone completely missing, so it was never going to work. And then the next one arrived the next day. Did work when you plugged it into the controller, that was fine. But then when I plugged the headset in, one of I think it's the right ear stereo channel was too quiet, and the mic would never work, and so I inspected that, and sure enough, the headphone socket on that one had been damaged, and I was like, oh, great, cool, two that don't work. But I found a YouTube tutorial on how to take one apart, and I was like, well, this one here, the one with the broken board, doesn't work at all, So I'll take that apart to see what it's like inside. And I found inside that the headset connector, the jack for the headset to plug into, is soldered to the board. Initially I thought, maybe I can swap that. That was a no non-starter because that's soldered on. I don't have the equipment to desolder and solder a new thing on. But the connector for the Chatpad into the controller, that was on a subboard that was just ribbon cabled onto the motherboard off the Chatpad. I was like, well, if I take the top half of one, disconnect the thing from the broken connector from the ribbon cable to the motherboard of that one with the working headphone jack, and then I take the other one apart, take off the same part, I put the working connector into the ribbon cable port for the one with the working headset jack. I can reassemble half of each of these two broken Chatpads into one working Chatpad. And it worked. Plugged it in, closed it up, shoved it in the controller. After a little while of it fussing around on the software trying to figure out what it was, initially I thought it was the headset adapter, and then it was like, wait, is it? What? Huh? It finally figured it out, and then it went, oh, yeah, cool, let me update the firmware of this thing. So it did. After it did that, smooth sailing. Headset works, keyboard works, all the functions work, Chatpad works. So this Chatpad that I have plugged into it is the one that combines the two, and it works. It's a working Chatpad. There is another one I have over there that has a sticker on it that says faulty because I reassembled the broken parts into one super broken Chatpad. So I have one super broken Chatpad and one working Chatpad. And now I'm happy. Was that probably more expensive than it would have been if I just bought one? Yes. Definitely. For sure. But I probably would have had to keep sending them back, waiting for one to come that was in some way not broken, and that would have been really annoying. So it kind of worked out in the end okay. It's more than I was hoping to spend, but not an astronomical amount. And I have a working Chatpad. So I'm happy. Yeah, that was the week. Assembling a Chatpad, playing State of Decay 2, watching Formula 1, bit of working. Quiet week. Some of them are. But yeah, thanks for watching me rant about Formula 1 and gush about killing zombies and whatnot, and recounting my success story with reassembling obscure consumer electronics. If for some reason you liked all this, click that like button. Subscribe if you want more. If you like notifications, you can ring that bell. I'm not going to tell you to do it. It's your life. You know what you need notifications for. It's there if you need it. And with that, I'll see you on the next one. Stay safe, everybody. Take care. And we'll see what happens in the coming week. I have no idea. I have no plans. Apart from work. See ya.
It's a three-pronged attack. Subliminal, liminal, and superliminal.
Superliminal?
I'll show you. Hey, you!
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, all right.
I'm in.